From dust-ridden airstrips to gleaming new terminals, from a handful of legacy carriers to a wave of lean, innovative startups. This is the story of the surprising rise of African airline startups. Stay tuned, because you're about to see how ambition, technology, and opportunity are redrawing the skies of Africa. Did you know that in just the past 5 years, Africa has seen a boom in airline startups, from under 10 serious challenges to over 30, and many are turning profit or closing in fast? You're about to discover how these airlines are doing the impossible, connecting remote regions, leapfrogging old infrastructure, leveraging technology to punch above their weight, and yes, turning heads globally. If you've ever wondered why tickets in Accra are getting cheaper, or why flights in East Africa now feel altogether different, buckle up, because this isn't about old-school flag carriers. This is about disruptors. First, let's set the stage. Africa's aviation industry is a paradox. On one hand, its landscapes are massive, urban populations are growing, and there is huge demand for movement, business, diaspora, tourism. On the other, infrastructure is limited, regulatory hurdles are high, and capital is scarce. Some remote towns still have dirt airstrips, border crossings are bogged down with inefficient visa regimes, and fuel costs are often double what they are elsewhere. Maintenance costs are pushed up by the lack of local supply chains. Yet people need to fly, and that need is only growing. The inflection point is here. Rising incomes, urbanization, tech adoption, and shifts in policy are pushing forward what many thought impossible. And it's giving birth to a new generation of airline startups, nimble, tech-savvy, sometimes underfunded, often audacious, but increasingly successful. Why now? Let's walk through the catalysts. First, demographics and the rising middle class. Many African countries are experiencing rapid urbanization and income growth. More people have disposable income and want to travel, whether for holidays, work, or visiting family. Second, technology. Mobile phones, fintech, and digital payments have bypassed traditional infrastructure. Booking flights, paying for them, managing check-in. Tech companies are enabling what was once cumbersome. Startups are integrating this from day one. Third, regulatory reforms and open skies agreements. Governments are beginning to ease restrictive regulations, open routes, and allow private investment. Bilateral agreements are being updated. Airports are getting upgraded. This regulatory tailwind gives startups room to breathe. Fourth, the demand from underserved markets. Large swaths of Africa remain neglected by legacy carriers. Routes that are not profitable enough or too logistically challenging create opportunities. Small players can swoop in with smaller jets, point-to-point service, and less overhead. Fifth, global investment and diaspora capital. Investors abroad, diaspora communities, and foreign development finance institutions are beginning to see aviation as a viable investment. Funding for aircraft, leasing, and training is becoming more accessible. And sixth, environment and sustainability pressures. Electrification, efficient aircraft, and alternative fuels could tilt the scale. Some startups are orienting themselves with green credentials from day one. Now let's meet the players. These are the startups or near startups that are changing the game. Some are early, some are already scaling. Some you will recognize, others you may never have heard of. But their stories matter. Take Airpeace in Nigeria. They began as a modest airline focused on domestic routes and underserved city pairs. Today, they've expanded into regional service. They challenge old carriers with frequent flights and better customer service. Their key strength is local knowledge, adapting pricing to market realities, and steady expansion rather than overreaching. Jambo in Kenya is another standout. Though technically the low-cost arm of Kenya Airways, it behaves like a scrappy startup. Lean operations, domestic routes, short regional hops. They understand price sensitivity and value reliability. They use bare-bones amenities, clever ticketing, and volume to build scale. Fly 540, one of the earlier entrants in East Africa, focused on remote airstrips and secondary airports with smaller planes and flexible schedules. They balanced cost against demand and built loyalty where no one else dared to serve. Air Côte d'Ivoire and ASCI Airlines in West Africa are building regional hubs and optimizing networks to feed connecting flights. They're not ultra-low cost, but they are adding capacity and infrastructure. Rwandair may not be a startup anymore, but its strategies mirror that spirit. A modern fleet, aggressive marketing, hub-and-spoke integration, and positioning Kigali as a regional connector. Other smaller contenders are emerging across Africa, from west to southern regions, carving niches in tourism flights, luxury charters, and regional business travel. But let's be real. It's not all smooth takeoffs. Startups face serious headwinds. Infrastructure gaps remain. Many airports are underdeveloped with short runways, crowded terminals, and outdated navigation systems. Ground handling is expensive, maintenance facilities scarce, and spare parts often have to be flown in from abroad. Operating costs are high. Jet fuel, leasing, and insurance are expensive. Tariffs and currency volatility add strain. Without scale, startups lack bargaining power, so their margins are squeezed. Regulatory and bureaucratic obstacles are another hurdle. Getting permissions, bilateral agreements, and safety certifications is time-consuming and costly. Corruption in some countries adds further complexity. Access to capital remains a critical challenge. Aircraft are expensive to lease or buy, and financing is hard to secure when aviation is seen as risky. Skilled personnel are also scarce. Pilots, engineers, and crew require expensive training, and retention is difficult. Finally, market risks remain. Demand is volatile, competition from legacy carriers is fierce, and external shocks like pandemics or political instability can devastate operations. Proactive regulatory navigation is another factor. By ensuring strong compliance, obtaining certifications early, and aligning with governments, startups can secure long-term support. In return, governments see the benefit in jobs, tourism, and economic growth. The data is proving their strategies work. Passenger growth rates in some cases exceed 20 to 40% annually. Load factors, or how full planes are, average 70 to 80%. A strong performance for regional carriers. Ancillary revenues, fees for baggage, cargo, charters, diversify income. Leasing allows access to newer, efficient aircraft without massive upfront costs. Some airlines are already reaching profitability in niche markets with little competition. What about the future? Watch for trends like green aviation and sustainable fuels. Expect attempts at ultra-low-cost models adapted to Africa's realities. Look for stronger inter-African connectivity as people travel within the continent, not just out of it. Digital and data-driven operations will continue to define the customer experience. Regional hubs will expand, and startups will increasingly feed into global airline networks. And resilience will matter. Flexible fleets, hedging fuel costs, diversified revenues to withstand shocks. But this isn't only about profit. The rise of African airline startups is about transformation. They connect remote communities, making healthcare, trade, and education more accessible. They drive economic growth, fueling tourism, business, and job creation. They strengthen cultural exchange and Pan-African identity by making travel easier and more affordable. And they spark innovation across industries, proving that if aviation can overcome Africa's toughest hurdles, other sectors can too. So what's the takeaway? African airline startups are one of the continent's defining stories. They refuse to be held back by infrastructure gaps. They design models for local realities. They are reshaping what it means to connect, to travel, and to do business in the 21st century. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with anyone who loves aviation, travel, or the rise of Africa's next big industries. Until next time, safe travels and clear skies.